Hello everybody, my name is Doug Welker, Marketing Manager for Hartwig, and welcome to the first Game-Changing Technologies webinar of 2021, the latest in Okuma 5-axis machining technology. Today we're going to specifically discuss the MU6300V 5-axis Machining Center, and with us we have longtime friends, partners, customers at Homeyer Precision Manufacturing. They actually have a 6300 as well as its bigger brother, the 8000, and they're going to talk about how this machine is a game changer for their shop. So right after this brief video that showcases the features of the MU6300V, we're going to be joined by the Homeyer Precision Manufacturing team. So if you have any questions at any time during today's presentation, please use the Q&A box below, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, welcome to Okuma America. I'm Kyle Klaver, Sales Engineer.
And I'm Eves, Applications Engineer. And today, we're here to show you the MU6300 VL.
The MU6300 is a bridge-style construction, which gives us accuracy, rigidity, and thermal stability. Jacob, can you explain why thermal stability is important to 5-axis machining?
Yes. Historically, you come into work, cut your first part, measure it, and you end up having to chase those dimensions all day long as your machine grows.
Okuma uses three concepts for the thermal-friendly design. Number one, we design a machine that can dissipate ambient temperature. Number two, we use simple shapes that are symmetrical, thick wall castings. And number three, we take advantage of the high technology in the control by utilizing thermal couplings in the casting and in the spindle. Does the machinist have to do anything for this to function for them?
Absolutely not. It's fully integrated into the control. It runs in the background. They'll never need to do anything to the control while they're running it.
So it maintains an accurate work environment for the entire day?
Absolutely, regardless of what the ambient temperature is in the shop.
The MU6300 is a vertical 5-axis with a trunnion. Jacob, can you tell us about the trunnion?
Sure, I'll show you. Our A-axis has dual cam rolls. Our C-axis is direct drive, and in lathe mode can spin to 800 RPMs with a maximum turning diameter just shy of 33 inches. The table weight, 1,320 pounds. Anywhere on the table it can hold it.
Now this is fitted with an HSK 100 10,000 RPM spindle, 35 horsepower. Do we offer other spindles?
We do. We offer a range of 15 to 25,000 RPM spindles.
The MU6300 comes standard with the OSP P300 SA. The SA stands for multitasking. Included in this control is collision avoidance. Jacob, why would somebody want collision avoidance?
Well, in my experience, more collisions take place when you're approaching the part and when you're departure from the part. Collision avoidance will help eliminate that.
Is it active in MDI and manual mode?
Yes, it stays active until you cancel it.
So that's going to really help when people are doing setups and changeovers. It's going to protect the machine tool and their investment from a crash.
Absolutely. The greatest risk is when you're hand wheeling an indicator over the top of a part and you hit the wrong button and all of a sudden you lost the indicator. Collision avoidance will stop the machine before it crashes in.
So it's a virtual CAD model machine running inside the control.
Yes. Once you set your environment in CAS, it'll prevent you from making the big uh-ohs. So two big features in our control software is tool center point control for all your 5-axis machining, dynamic fixture offset for all your 3+2. Now, dynamic fixture offset is a great thing to have. You can set your part up anywhere on the table, run your probing cycle, let it sit there and set your zeros, and then run your program. And from part to part, you repeat it. There's no lengthy setup from part to part, indicating your part in. You just hit the button and go.
So this allows us to program the part from part 0, set it up to part 0, and then let the machine do all the work in the background without machinist intervention.
Absolutely.
So we reduce our cost of setup and throughput to the shop.
Simple G-code activates it, simple G-code cancels it. So one important feature that you might need if you own a 5-axis machine is the ability to check your 5-axis machine to make sure everything's still working properly. Now, a USA standard on Okuma 5-axis is auto-tuning.
Okuma's 5-axis auto tuning, not only does it do your pivots, but it does straightness, squareness, and roll, pitch, and yaw, which gives you a volumetric accuracy for the entire work envelope. This allows you to check your machine at install and then health check it at periodic points. When else would we want to run this feature?
So the main reason you want to run it is if you had any kind of accident, any kind of tool collision, drop the fixture on it, drop the part. It's easy enough to set up a provided Renishaw tooling ball with the Renishaw probe. Software is already built in, it comes in the control, no thinking involved. You run it, it tells you your error. If your error is minimal, then you're good to keep running.
If the error starts to look like it's out of tolerance, I remember seeing that it shows it in magenta.
It does.
And that would be a point that we would want to call a service technician to come in and check our machine.
Most definitely. That tells me that chances are you have squareness in the head or your pivot points are now beyond what auto tuning can correct.
So I can use this to really keep an eye on my machine for the longevity of ownership.
Absolutely. And you have multiple steps. Some of them can only take 7 minutes to run auto tuning. You can do a full cycle that takes about 18. You could make it part of your standard every morning when you come into your shop. Run it, tell me the machine's good, and then start running your parts.
Thank you for joining us today on the tour of the MU6300 VL.
For further information, please visit okuma.com.
Hey, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Wade. So that's Wade Anderson coming to us live from Charlotte, North Carolina.
That's right.
And I've got our friends on from Homeyer Precision Manufacturing, Tim Wetzel, Dave Grzecki, and Travis Hillman. So we're excited to be here with you guys live. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's 12 degrees here in St. Louis. Hope everybody's enjoying their cold and frosty day. It's great to come together and share game-changing technology. I've known the Homeyer gang for 26 years now, and I watched them grow and develop. So to start us off here, we're going to ask Tim Wetzel and to give us a background on who Homeyer Precision Manufacturing is. So, Tim, you ready to take it away?
Yes, Nick, I sure am. Thank you. Homeyer Precision Manufacturing is a precision job shop when we're vertically integrated company. We've been in business for 30-something years. Our owner and CEO, Herb Homeyer, started the business about 30 years ago. It's a family-owned business. His son and his daughter, Justin and Gretchen, are very integral parts of our business and how we run it today. With Herb's dedication to technology, that's what we're going to talk about today, is how Herb has, with his technology and has driven the technology in our business that we embrace today, is the part of it is the 5-axis machine that we're currently going to talk about today. And so with that, and our partnership with Hartwig and Okuma is a tribute to our success over the past 30 years. So we wanted to thank those guys, and then I'll bring my team in. We can have some questions from you, Nick, please.
Great, guys. Thank you. As I've mentioned, I've watched these guys grow. Herb started out in a 400 square foot rented area, and I've watched him over the years grow and invest in new technologies.
Yeah, we're at 56,000 square feet now in 2 buildings, so we've been growing quite a bit.
I think you're up to 55 employees, and
Yes.
And you guys are masters of technologies like wire EDM and water jet, just to mention Swiss turning, others. And so 5-axis has been a game changer for your shop. And so I know, I think your first 5-axis was about 10 years ago. But Dave, I want to bring you into this conversation. What has prompted you to want to continue to invest in 5-axis machines?
Well, it's the wave of the future, but not only that, it's also a way to reduce your costs. How do we continuously invest in our skilled labor, which is really paramount. We talk about where's skilled labor going, how do you invest in them? And really the technology has been the driving factor. When we started switching 4 or 5 years ago into more and more 5-axis, we started creating people that wanted something different. We learned many years ago that the younger kids today have information at their fingertips, and they want to be gratified pretty quickly. They want something that keeps them charged up and doesn't keep them bored. And the 5-axis have done that for us. It's also streamlined our entire operation. We used to do a lot of vertical milling. We still do, but we used fixtures. We had over 1,000 fixtures. We're down to maybe 30 fixtures now that are sitting on the shelf. We haven't used them in over 7 or 8 months because we keep implementing everything to a 5-axis to really streamline all the processes. And it's been wonderful. It's just been marvelous.
That's amazing. So I think you guys own like 6 5-axis machines right now, isn't that right?
That is correct. We own a combination of 6 where they're a combination of whether they're turning and milling or they're just straight 5-axis milling.
Yeah. So Dave, tell me a little bit about the kind of work that you guys do. They're not simple parts, are they?
No, they're not simple parts at all. In fact, one of the things that before we were going to talk about this, we wanted to talk about the complexity of the parts we do make. When you talked about tramming that machine back in and justifying, making sure your axes are correct, we do it all the time. We hold 2/10 when we talk about true position on parts that can be anywhere from a 4-inch cube to a 16 or an 18, 20-inch cube. In fact, there's parts that we're making that are 30 inches in a cube, and we're holding 2/10 true positions when we turn around doing things in only 2 operations.
Dave, can you describe a little bit more in detail how parts are processed through the shop? I think you mentioned you used to do things on multiple verticals, lots of setups. Tell us more detail how that's changed.
Well, it's changed by Workholding has changed significantly. So you've got dovetails and you can tab things now. You hold things significantly different. And the 5-axis has allowed us to use a lot more dovetails. It's allowed us to use a lot more tabbing. And when you do that, you're now creating an envelope that you only need 2 operations, well, 3 operations. Sometimes you dovetail it, sometimes you prep it for your tabbing. And then once you tab a part off or you get the part completely sequenced in all 4 sides, all you have to do is cut the dovetail off. So it's significantly made everything easier. And the best part about it is you don't have to re-indicate everything in. You know that when you go from one side to another side, everything is right there.
Yeah. Hey, I want to remind our listeners, if you have any questions, please send them into the Q&A tab. And we want to try to answer all those. So between Dave and Travis and Tim here, we also have Wade on the line from Okuma, and then I want to bring Wade into the conversation in a minute here. But we want to try to answer all your questions technically, but also from a standpoint of what's it like from the shop standpoint. The culture has definitely changed at Homeyer Precision, and that's what a lot of this is about. Is how the culture in your shop can change with the addition of 5-axis and higher technology. So you mentioned bringing this in and working with millennials. Travis, I want to bring you in on the conversation a little bit. Sounds like it's been your job to try to educate, bring along some of the newer skilled workers and get them up to speed with 5-axis. Tell us how that works for you. How does it work for Homeyer?
I think personally for me is how do you entertain them? I mean, they get bored very easily. So setting, if you're doing a 30-piece job and you're setting up a VMC and you got to put 5 vices in a machine, the setup is entertaining, but it's easier to set up one vice or one dovetail, whatever you're using to hold that dovetail in your 5-axis machine. Have them set up that part, and it pretty much runs by itself while they get to go do another setup. It's not always running the parts that's the most entertaining. Some of it's setting it up. It's finding everybody's individual, what makes their mind tick.
Yeah, right.
And
so do you feel like it's easier to attract new workers to your shop now that you have higher tech machines?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yep. I'd say that's been a game changer, right?
absolutely.
Absolutely. Hey, Wade, I want to bring you in on the conversation. I know you're involved with training in Charlotte and trying to attract new people. How do you think 5-axis is changing the machining world from Okuma's standpoint?
Gosh, that's hard to say in just one quick sentence, but it's changed the game tremendously from everything from getting people interested in the industry. One of the things I look at is the increased exposure that young people have just using Instagram, for an example. There's a whole community out there of young, talented engineers that like to create very creative parts, put it out on Instagram, and there's a whole community based around that. One of the trade shows I went to last year at EMO, there was a group of about 45 people that all traveled around together to look at all the different booths and all the different technologies. And they were this young, talented group of engineers that they only know each other through Instagram, but they share ideas and some of the creativity that people are driving. That's, as you talk about getting people interested, if you can let their mind work and let them get creative about their process and what they can do with the equipment, it's amazing the type of parts and processes they can come up with that a guy like you or I wouldn't have thought of, right? Because we kind of get stuck in that rut of this is the way we always did it. And people that maintain that philosophy of we're going to do it this way because that's the way we've always done it, will never see the type of growth that people like Homeyer have done. They're a true success story of everything that embracing new technology can bring about. The people that you're competing with today is not just the job shop next door. You're competing against projects globally. You look at some of the work that some of the Japanese machine companies are doing in Japan for Boeing and some of the very expensive titanium components. They're not doing that with unskilled, cheap, untalented labor. They're doing that by utilizing technology and utilizing extremely talented people and letting the technology give them the efficiency advantages that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
So, Tim and Dave, how true is that? How far reaching is your business?
We reach coast to coast, so it's really been dynamic. I'd say up until about 4 or 5 years ago, we were considered to be local, and now we're coast to coast. Those customers are out looking for people like us, somebody that's doing it a little bit differently, that's investing in the technology and really grabbing onto it. Even when you talk to your kids, and you asked earlier, how are you finding your young talent? It's, they like the computer side of it. They like to model things and they like to see things in 3D. Well, there's no better way to get them captivated than 5-axis machining, because they have to be able to use 3D. They have to be able to do modeling. They have to be able to turn around and be able to visualize it. And that's the part that Travis talks about, is how do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them not bored? How do you show them something different? And every time we get a different part, and the interesting thing is that we're no longer doing legacy stuff over and over and over again. That is a segment of our business that we do not want to go away, and we'll never give that up. But the interesting part is that in the last 2 years, we've added something like 1,000 part numbers that are complex and very, very difficult to machine that nobody else wants to touch, or if they want to touch them, they're quoting 9-10 weeks, and we can do it in 3 and 4, 5 and 6. And it doesn't have to be a lot of high production. It can be 1 and 2 parts. It can be 3 and 4 parts. And that's the beauty of it, is that it just consistently keeps moving and growing.
Yeah, it's opened the door for a lot of world-class customers that we would have never been able to touch before. So it's, last year we brought in a lot of, about 7 new customers, and out of those, there's some world-class customers in there that we wouldn't have been able to do if we weren't doing this type of work. So it's very important, and it's beneficial for us to continue on this journey.
Well, another part of that is that when you go world-class and you go coast to coast, what they look at is your quality documents, and they look at how you document things and everything else. And when you look at 5-axis machining, and you look at the consistency of it, and you look at the setup of it, when you don't have to move from part to part, indicate things in, trade it, transfer it, our cost of quality has dropped drastically. because when a part comes off of a 5-axis machine, you can almost guarantee it's good. It gets into the CMM room. You might have a little glip, but you don't have 4 glips. And it's changed our cost of quality, and it's changed how our customers look at us. Now they see a part that comes down, there is no question. They don't even bother even asking for, or they don't even put our parts through their inspection process. Their cost of quality is dropped. And that's an important part of 5-axis machining.
Yeah, I've got a question just came in here, and this comes up a lot with 5-axis machines. And so, Dave, how often are you guys truly running full 5-axis parts? Are the majority of these 3+2?
That's a real interesting question. It's one of the things that we promoted here when we looked at 5-axis machining. And I come from a background of a lot of 5-axis machining. 5-axis machining, most everybody who uses it only 10 or 15% of the time. Every part, sometimes less than that. There's more 3-2 work done on 5-axis machining or 5-axis machines than there is actual 5-axis work. It's a misnomer in the industry where everybody sees the cool videos and the tables moving in 100 different directions and everybody's going, wow, look at that. I got to get a part like that. That's not the norm. That is not how you benefit or utilize a 5-axis machine. It can be done, and it's done a lot, but it's only 5, 10, 15% of the time. Most of it's 3-2 work. And once you grasp that and realize that and utilize it to change how you're looking at VMC and horizontal work, you'll get the grasp of a 5-axis machine a lot faster and a lot quicker.
You know, I find it interesting that when we were talking, a lot of your work are small quantity and fairly long run. And I think didn't you tell me most of the work is out of block or billet?
It's all out, most of it's out of block or billet. Some of it is casting. And the beauty of it is when you look at, and this was the hard part that even we had to turn around graph, is everything we were quoting, we were looking at, 5-minute cycle time op 1, 5-minute cycle time op 2, 5-minute cycle time op 3, and you add up all those cycle times. If you can put it in a 5-axis and combine those 4 operations, your cycle time is now 25 minutes. When that cycle time is 25 minutes, that door is closed. That spindle is running. There is no opening and closing the door. That's a game changer. That's where the money's at when the spindle is running. But more importantly, because remember, we talk about how do you keep the kids not bored? Surround them with 3, 4, 5, 6 different 5-axis and a couple of VMCs around them and let them do other things while that machine is running. Game changer. Now they're making money on top of money.
So here's another question. I wouldn't have thought of this, but either Travis or Dave, have you seen any change in your tooling costs going to, processing parts this way as opposed to the way you used to?
Yeah, it's real interesting. Our tooling costs have rose, but our tooling costs were so low that we weren't making any money on it. So when we increased our budget on the tooling costs, our productivity went up 5 times what we spent on tooling. So our tooling costs in reality have dropped. But when you look at the initial investment, they look like they rise, but your productivity gain is so astronomical. When you look at the cost of tool for the job, it's minimal at that stage because you're investing in a lot of technology in the tooling as well.
It's top quality tooling, and it's reducing your cost overall.
Okay, so it goes hand in hand.
Goes hand in hand.
Beautiful.
Standardization.
When you got a little bit of tooling cost, you probably got negative productivity or negative profitability. When you have a positive tooling cost, you have an enormous amount of productivity and profitability.
So if you were starting all over again, you didn't have a 5-axis machine, what size? I got a question here. Somebody asked, what do you think's the best size to start with?
What's the normal size of the parts that you normally make? I mean, we started off with the MU400, which is about a 12-inch cube, and that seemed to be right for us. But we always noticed every time we just had parts that were just outside that envelope. So then you get a little bit bigger one, and then we got the bigger one, and then it's a little bit bigger. So I think that's the key. you start small and go big, but that doesn't always work
Start
for
with your
everybody.
base, start with your base work, learn how to change your base work from being a lot of hands-on, a lot of touching, a lot of movement, reduce your cost on that, get comfortable with it, get your base done, and then move into where you need to go. So heck, I mean, even one of the 5 axes, we have a 120-inch table, you know, and we can't, that machine never stops.
Yeah. Hey, it's interesting. We've covered 14, 15 states, in the Midwest, and I've got people asking questions or people online from all over the map. Here's one from Jeff. What industries are fueling most of your growth?
All kinds of new industries. A lot of things is some defense, some space, some medical. So it's all across the board. A lot of it, we're fortunate enough to be in some of the up and coming industries that are solid right now. So that's worked out in our favor.
Valves and hydraulics.
Valves and hydraulics. Yeah. So when you get into 5 axes, you can do a lot of different parts that you can't normally do with the normal style equipment. It opens the door to a lot bigger and a lot different type of company, I think.
They touched on something that we see a good bit right now internally in some of the projects we're looking at internally at Okuma. A lot of people think of 5 axis. You always think of the sexy aerospace frames and satellite housings and things like that. But he mentioned valves and blocks. That's a huge component right now we're dealing with. And that goes across a lot of different industries, from oil and energy to heavy production automotive, trains, things of that nature. So there's a lot of different work that a lot of times I think people overlook and don't think about that being 5 axis work till you actually look at the part again, start thinking about how you're processing it and being able to work your way all the way around the part in 1 or 2 operations. I loved what David said earlier about reducing the number of fixtures that you have, being able to use dovetails and things of that nature. Those are huge gains of efficiency.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, here's another question. Are you seeing any effects of reshoring and changes in supply chain activities?
Yes, we are seeing some differences in that. What we're seeing is that being local or being closer to American companies, that it's a lot of those companies, maybe not directly to us, but they're bringing that work back, and it's easy to work right in the same time frame or timeline across central time zones that we are working with. It's easier that way.
Well, the reshoring is also interesting, is that where we've made a difference on parts that have been reshored or they're contemplating reshoring is they need to see me first. They want a 1 or 2 part runoff. And it's easier to do a 1 or 2 part runoff on a 5 axis than it is on a multitude of VMCs where you have to use multiple setups. So we've seen some of that where people are saying, hey, you know what, let's do a couple of tests. We don't know where this is going to go, but we flat out know they're trying to reshore it.
Here's a question, came from the video. So Travis, I don't know if you or Dave want to answer this. How are you guys programming your machines? And are you using the collision avoidance?
We're using NX for our programming software. We do use collision avoidance, but it's very minimum right now as we have it on our software as well. But it's pretty much just like anything else as far as you're going to watch your first run, you're going to watch your first setup, and then from there, depending on your part count, you can walk away from it a little bit more.
And remember, we've been programming the 5 axes now for over 7 years, so we don't have to rely on the crash avoidance as much as someone who's first getting one.
Yeah, it was a nice feature. Wade, do you want to have any comments on that? It's a nice feature that's included from Okuma.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I would say. Even if it's just turned on and you don't model everything, especially if you're doing full 5 axis. TCPC type commands, things like that, it will shut off automatically. So you don't have to worry about it too much. one of the biggest benefits, though, is getting on and off the part. I think it was Travis that said, they do a lot in the simulation software, the programming itself, but a lot of the crashes happen from areas that you don't see, or somebody getting in there and jogging a machine and, tilt the table into a tool and things like that. So that's an area where having collision avoidance just turned on, as long as you've got your work holding and things modeled in the system, you at least protect the machine from itself that way.
Hey, Wade, I want to come back to a question. I didn't give you a chance on this. What would you say if a customer asked you what would be the best 5-axis machine to start out with? From Okuma's perspective, what would you say?
What a loaded question. So, again, it kind of goes back to the type of parts that you're doing. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of all of our 5-axis. The Genos M465AX is by far the largest volume machine that we sell from a 5-axis standpoint. The 400 millimeter size machine from both the 5-axis as well as horizontals are the largest consumed machines in North America. So those tend to be the most popular. But from a flexibility standpoint, and then if I'm looking at, am I going to add automation down the road, whether it's a robot and a ROA, a Fastums FMS, whatever it is, the MU series, that trunnion turns so it tilts basically side to side so you can load the machine through the side door. That really opens up the world from being accessibility, being able to reach into the machine and still let the operator have full access to the front of the machine. All of those 5-axis machines, though, that I'm mentioning, the Genos as well as the MUs, are all built on that double column construction, that double column style. So the base skeleton and frame is the same between those models. So they're all really good pieces of equipment. Just depends on what do you want to do now, and then what's your vision of where you want to be 5-10 years down the road, and make sure we don't handicap you getting there, get you in the right platform.
Thank you, Wade. I've got a question. Return on investment, guys. Here's one. Said, when you bought your first 5-axis machine, how long did it take you, months and years, for your return on investment?
3 weeks.
I would say the first one was a lot longer. It took probably twice as long as it should. Right now, what we look on an ROI is about 18 months.
Yeah. Did it come from
That's not too bad. So we even took an 8,000 in during the COVID series because we knew that it would get filled up, and we no sooner put it on the floor than the next thing we were jammed up. So 18 months isn't very long.
All right. So Mark had a follow-up to that, and he said, was the return on investment really due to time saving or more complex work? It was probably more high value work.
It's more of how you refiltered your capacity. So let's just say we were filled and had bottlenecks in other areas. By putting the 5-axis in, it decreased the bottlenecks in other areas, or moved bottlenecks and turned around and gave us more capacity, and turned around and gave us more throughput. So things that we were turning around promising customers that would be in 6 weeks, we weren't delivering till 8 weeks. Now we're delivering in 4 weeks, and then you turn around and you can take on more work. The other part of it is that some of the processes were faster, smoother, and more significant, along with the cost of scrap, or the reduction in scrap costs. So the less scrap you made, the more product went out the door, the less you tried to turn around and rework. So you didn't have to go back and lose valuable time that way. So from that standpoint, there's a multitude of things that changed the game by continuously adding 5-axis machines. Not only did you get more part numbers, got more work, decrease some bottlenecks, and your throughput went through the roof.
So how much part checking do you actually do in the machine versus on a CMM?
Trick question. When you start doing new part numbers, everything's gone through a CMM. We still put most everything through the CMM, even though we know the part is right. We'll always check on the machine when there's true positions, real tight true positions. We'll check the true positions and the critical features. All the other stuff that has, you know, the plus or minus ones, the real easy stuff to hit, we let the CMM do it. We still do. And our customers expect, some of our customers expect a full CMM report anyway.
Somebody noticed on the video that the machine was a 6300 VL. Wade, do you want to comment on the L?
Sure, that's the turning function. So all those MUs are available with a direct drive turning trunnion, so we can do turning operations. The 6300, I believe, is at 800 RPM max. So as your table gets smaller, your RPMs can increase. But it's a great way to add even deeper levels of multifunction technology onto the machine. So yeah, any of the MU-Vs are just 5-axis machining centers. Anytime you see the L on the end of that, that references a lathe functionality.
Awesome. All right. I think that's it for the questions that have come in. Any other final comments from our friends at Homeyer or Okuma?
We love our 5-axis.
The service is wonderful. I mean, I hope everybody would use all of their services if you turn around and buy it. We flat out know we're in a full PM program with them, and that has drastically reduced our cost and increased our uptime in our production. We used to go down, if we had something that would go down, you know, it'd be a day or two to get somebody out there, but now, and that's pretty normal. But now with a full preventive maintenance program, we rarely are going down, and that's all attributed to Hartwig and the Okuma platform that they've introduced to us, and I tell you, we can't speak more highly of it.
Yep, it's been great.
Well, we certainly appreciate the partnership with Homeyer and everything that you guys do for manufacturing. So, Nick, I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you much. Thank you guys for all taking the time to put this together, and thank you for all our viewers. And this will be is being recorded. It'll be on YouTube, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.